All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 6:01, and I'm going to announce that I'm announcing that this meeting is being recorded. And if anyone wants to make an audio or video recording of this meeting, please notify me at this time. Okay, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome to all our visitors. Would anyone like to speak? Oh.
Gordon Anders, 244 Elm Street. Are you guys going to take any public comment after you look at the budget?
What?
After you
No.
look at the preliminary budget?
No, we're not going to take any public comment after that.
Okay.
Do you want me to talk
Hi everyone. I'm Lori Heaney, and I know none of you guys want to make cuts, so I'm not going to do like a preachy speech. I just want you to understand where we are and present evidence that losing even one staff member would be untenable for us at this time. As it stands, we're already at a risk of being unable to meet the required special education minutes. As a kindergarten teacher, we share one para, but that para has 115 minutes of lunch and recess duty a day, so we rarely share a half-time para between 4 classrooms. And when she gets pulled to sub, we lose an additional 30 minutes a day. The absence of a full-time behaviorist and the loss of paraprofessional support significantly impact the adjustment counselor's ability to effectively serve her students. She's responsible for 19 students with IEPs and around 37 other students who require regular support. Without the behaviorist or paraprofessional, she's left to respond to behaviors, develop plans, create charts and visuals, and collaborate with teachers and the team. Additionally, as the numerous team meetings consume much of her time, as a result, she's unable to proactively address behaviors and crises in a preventable and effective manner. First grade has no math support, kindergarten has no reading or math support, 5th grade lost Title I math support. Sorry, I am trying to read fast. Specialists have already been reduced to the maximum extent possible without compromising their ability to serve all students. Any further cuts would prevent them from reaching every class, hindering their ability to meet the required standards. As a result, they will likely need to eliminate instrument lessons, health classes, and other special activities such as chorus and field day. If a student is identified as needing an intervention through the MTSS process, at this time, there's no staff available to deliver those services. And when a specialist teacher is absent and there is no sub, we miss prep time. So if this happens when I have a duty, I only have 20 minutes a day for lunch and prep. So that's kind of where we are right now. So hopefully we don't have to.
Can you repeat the no support grades and what they are? First grade is no math.
Oh, first grade has no math support. Kindergarten has no reading or math. 5th grade lost Title I math support.
Thank you.
Welcome. Anything else?
Anyone else want to make a comment?
Will the meeting that, for the public hearing, have the budget that's being proposed published before the meeting so the public can review it?
The line item preliminary budget that's being presented with the school committee tonight will be on the district website tomorrow, along with the presentation we're giving.
Thank you.
And then as the budget progresses, the website will be updated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now we'll move on to the review and vote the minutes of November 5th. 25th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 25th, 2024.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Do roll call. Katie?
Yep.
Lori?
Yes.
Karen?
Which one did you get?
It was the last meeting.
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay.
Also abstaining, so he's not here.
Okay, and I approve them. Yeah, yes. I vote yes. All right, and now we'll move on to the full regionalization discussion.
Sure, Sarah and I met with Cody, Town Administrator Keith, Town Administrator from Kingston, and representatives from the Collins Center to discuss the possibility of the Collins Center helping to lead this work that's being paid for from the grant. In addition, this topic is going to be on the joint meeting agenda, and it's my understanding that the towns will be seeking representation from each of our school committees, so one person from each school committee, and then representation from central office to help foster communication about the regionalization study. So that will be the charge of that committee. In addition, I have a meeting set up with the Mass Association of Regional Schools and have invited both the town administrator from Halifax and Kingston to attend if they are available. We may also want to partner with Mars since their specialty, their focus is regional school systems in Massachusetts, and they have experience with transitioning to fully regionalized school systems. So that will be scheduled for this week. The opportunity to learn more about it will be on our joint committee meeting coming up, which will be held at the Kingston Town Hall. And the reason for the need to have it at the Kingston Town Hall is because Kingston must have both in-person and online access to their meetings because of their bylaw. And they have the equipment and facility in order to be able to provide that. So the town of Plimpton and the town of Halifax have agreed to meet in Kingston.
Okay. So I guess more information is forthcoming, so I don't need to ask a million questions right now. Okay.
Do we need to nominate a representative from Halifax for that committee? For the regionalization committee?
I don't have authority to ask that, so that would have to be done after it's brought up by the towns.
Okay.
And to be clear, this is the meeting that's happening on Thursday? Or-
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
And also, if you're aware, we were awarded the grant. Did you know that?
I did not.
Okay.
That's
So
great.
yeah, we were
That's
awarded
really
the grant. So I guess my only question is, bringing Collins in, is that the people that you were looking at before that gave us the quote, or is that?
No, that was NESDEC,
Okay.
and the town reached out to Collins Center. I'm now looking into Mars and trying to determine whether or not that would be something that we could do additionally or instead of.
Okay, so basically, all right.
But again, ultimately, it will be up to the towns. Originally, it was Halifax that applied on behalf of the two towns. That grant was then given over to Kingston because of the vote that occurred in Halifax more recently that
Right.
wouldn't allow them to be eligible for that. So the grant is now in the hands of Kingston. But they are working collaboratively together on that.
Can you just clarify what vote are we talking about that wouldn't apply?
I believe it was the MBTA vote.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So there was impact for our schools.
There was.
Good to know.
Okay. Anything else on questions? Okay. The approval of bill schedule?
Thank you. Our meetings are out of sync with the warrant cycle right now. There was a warrant that was due to the town on December 2nd that went out as a single signature warrant. It was for $185,776.34. There was a warrant that was due to the town on January 6th that also went out as a single signature warrant. It was for $80,563.74. The next warrant is due to the town on February 3rd. We will continue to be out of sync with the town, so that will also go out as a single signature warrant.
Thank you. I don't have any correspondence or reports, new business or future agenda item. Well, does anyone have a future agenda item they would like to? Okay. Okay. All right, so we'll do the subcommittees first. So the first one is the policies subcommittee met, and there's, I would recommend that we make a motion to waive the first read of the policies. And I mean, I would request that someone make that unless you want to read them all. I hope I can give an short information, a summary of each of what the new policies are. But we can waive the first read of the policies. Would anyone like to make that motion?
Do you need us to read each of the policies to make that
I
motion?
believe so.
Okay.
Letters.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I would like to make a motion that we waive the first reading of policies ACAB, handbook language, ACAB, Title 9, BEDB, BHE, EFC, EFD, EHAA, EHB, GBEE, UNDC.
Nope, I.
Oh. GB,
We're on
oh,
to-
thank you. IJNDC, JICJ, KDC, KDCB, KHB, and KHC. I think that's all of them.
Yeah, and I can go over what they are. So the ACAB handbook language replaced Dr. Clifford as our Title V coordinator, and it changed, it clarified.
Second for her first?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Second. Sorry.
Oh, no, thank you. Getting ahead of myself. All in favor?
I,
Okay. I will now go over, so the ACAB handbook language replaced Dr. Clifford as our Title V coordinator and changed the district name,
Title IX.
Title IX, sorry, Title IX. And then ACAB, the Title IX, changed the district name, just, added in Union 31. And then for BEDB, we discussed adding a request to have materials in our folders 48 hours before a meeting so that they can be looked at, and if we, before, not just like right before the meeting, but we didn't, it's just a request for it, like, because we do understand that last minute things will be needed to be added, so that's the change for that one. And then BHE is the use of electronic messaging by school committee members, which if you're conducting official school committee business or acting as a member of the school committee, you need to make sure you use the SLRSD email that you received, that we all received when we became school committee members, and CC Karen Tringali, because they are all considered public record, just so there's a record of that. So that's the update for that one. And then EFC is about the universal free school meals, and so it replaces policy, EFD replaces EFC, correct? Or is it the other way around? I think EFD replaces EFC.
So, EFC replaces the old EFC.
Oh, okay, so there's.
We have a new EFC to replace the old one. And in addition, the title changed. And then EFD is a new policy in relation to the changes that took place with the universal free meals.
Okay.
So they're both replacing former policies.
I actually had a question about that. The universal free lunch program, is that something that has been approved continuously, or is that a year-to-year from the state guidelines or mandates? Or?
It remains in place until we hear otherwise.
Okay.
I can't promise that it will always be in place.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, and then EHAA is District Security Related to Technology, which is about protecting the data, all of our data. And then JBEE, Personal Use of Technology, the change to it is that social media pages would need approval. And they're talking about social media pages possibly for like coaches or some classrooms. Can they do that, or is it? It's just that someone needs to approve any social media page and who's managing the page. So And then I, J, and DC, acceptable use of digital resources at the district level, make sure that resources used in our digital, what our students and people using our computers have access to is appropriate. And then JICJ, student use of technology in schools, that students will use technology responsibly, which they're also, they already sign something every year saying that they will, and that's, which also the teachers are going to be signing, which I assume has already been happening, but, and then KDC is that basically if you access the wireless of the school, you agree to use the rules of the district, which if you sign in, it asks you to agree to that anyway, so. And then KDCB is the open forum commentary is turned off from the district website because if somebody were to write anything inappropriate, or we can't remove it, and so just the open forum is just completely removed on that, so.
We can't remove it because of free speech, not because it's not possible to remove.
Okay, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it is possible, but we can't
Yeah.
because of free speech, so we just are.
So a lot of school districts don't even open up that feature because they don't want to find themselves in a position where they have to keep something on their website that would be inappropriate for a school.
Okay, and then KHB and KHC is about advertising in schools and distribution of notices. Someone went actually to some other towns, well actually it was the school support staff in the office, because they're receiving so many requests to distribute materials that it's becoming cumbersome, and given how, everyone's stretched pretty much, that so they went to other schools and found that some schools, if it's not related to the district, then it's not being sent out. And they have a response, a response where you say, we would love to help you out, but, the requests have become overwhelming basically, and we're unable to. So that's what the policy is proposing. It's not fully written yet, but
It is.
It is? Okay.
Yep, it's now in there. It's been
Oh,
updated
okay.
and approved by Russ.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why
I was
we're
looking at the
moving
old one, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. I was looking at the one from the meeting. Okay.
forward. Okay, and I'm pretty sure it's in there. If it's not,
It
I'll make
probably
sure it
is.
gets.
I think, well, I was looking, okay.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right, never mind. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or comments about that?
So can I ask a question about the last one? So there's a flyer for the Girl Scouts. Are we talking about things like that?
But not tonight. If this policy were to be passed, it would prevent things like that from going out via the school.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, so now we can make a motion to accept the first read of the policies, if someone would be interested in that. And, you can just do the letters, you don't even have to read the,
I'll make a motion to approve you say the
Accept.
terminology again?
yeah, a motion to accept the first read policies.
I'll make a motion to accept the first read of the policies, ACAB, ACAB, BE, BHE, EFC, EFD, EHAA, EHB, GBEE, IJNDC, JICJ, KDC, KDCB, KHB, and KHC.
Okay. All right, can you roll call vote? Katie?
Yes.
Yes.
Lori? Karen?
Yes.
Jessica?
So I'm accepting how they're written now?
Right.
No, not yet.
Okay, and myself is a yes. All right, our next subcommittee is negotiations, which, I wanted to talk to our whole committee because we've been having trouble scheduling them. So I wanted to make sure that, do you still want to be on negotiations? Because we've had a hard time scheduling.
Yeah, I just can't do it before 4:30, so I mean, I guess if they're all gonna be at 3:30, that's gonna be pretty impossible.
Okay, I mean, typically that's when they are, right? Like between 3:30 and 4, the negotiations, are they?
It doesn't have to be, that's when we've had them in the past, because we've had committee members who were available at that time. Again, it will
If they've
depend
been pushed a little bit, just because that is bad, that's hard anyway. I have 3 small children, they're still in the school, so my husband's not home. He's not always home by 3:30, so, I could make like a 4:30 work, I can't always make a 3:30 work, but I would like to stay on negotiations if I can, I can't make that 3:30 work.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with the time changing if that's a possibility, like if we could make them later from now on.
If that works for the other team that we're negotiating
Okay.
with, it should be a non-issue.
Lori,
We
you're,
have-
oh, sorry, I know we haven't, I was gonna say, Lori, does the time work for you?
So
I
the
know.
time, yeah, the time, I've just accepted a new job that I am working till 5, so,
Because
I
later
can't
works.
meet at 3:30.
Okay.
Because later works.
Okay,
too,
so-
yeah.
Mhm.
All right,
So we'll keep it like that for now, and see if that works for whoever we're negotiating with.
and if not, we'll have to figure something else out.
Mhm.
Good, all right. Okay, Pilgrim Area Collaborative. Lori?
So we did not meet because of the busy holiday season. We all didn't have any meetings and nothing to report.
Okay. Youth and Rec, Katie?
I have no report. I was sick that night that they met.
Okay. PTO?
Their meeting would have been this past Tuesday, but they canceled.
Okay. Capital Budget didn't meet. Admin Review,
No updates.
okay. DEIB Subcommittee,
We have not met.
okay. And Union 31 is meeting on Thursday.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, up to, principal's report, Mr. Beaudry.
All right, thank you. I have on there the school council continues to meet each month. One of the requests from last meeting was to have the goals that we had for HES that we worked over the summertime. So we had 3 goals. One was a student learning goal, which continues to be our district goal of where we're having at least 70% of students achieve meeting or exceeding in each of the MCAS subjects by the fall of 2024, which would be fall of 2025 because we started this one last year. The next goal that we have there was a professional practice goal. This one here is along with our multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS. This is to increase student achievement and the social and emotional well-being of all students K to 6 and track their progress along the way. And the last goal there is our school goal, and this one is focusing on Tier 1 instruction in ELA and working with the staff to identify strengths and weaknesses in ELA instructional strategies.
So can I just ask a question on the first one?
Sure.
Is this changing to fall of 2025?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it was something that we started back in last summer before last, and then it continued, so that would be fall of 2025.
Do you have the overarching percentage for the fall of 2023 to fall of 2024?
For MCAS scores, offhand, I can get them for you. I don't have them offhand, but would you want them collectively 3 through 6?
I want it however you're measuring it, like, you know, like what does it mean, 70%? And where are you? How close are you to 70% basically?
Okay.
That's my question, you know?
Got
If that's the goal, where are you on your way to reaching it?
Right.
You know, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So during the MCAS presentation, I believe that data was shared. In addition, multiple years' data can be found on the DESI website as well. So I guess for clarification, I don't necessarily think we need to go through the MCAS presentation
I
again.
don't know. I was just wondering if we knew the number, because I was like, okay, here's the goal. Where are we at? That's, you know, what I would like to know.
I
Okay.
think what we did is we took our 3 through 6 in both ELA and math, and we average them together to get the overall score.
Okay, and that's what you're saying your measurement is then?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So if we could just get that information at some
Sure.
point, just so we can know where you are. Okay, thanks.
Let's see, the other piece there we were looking at was our school improvement plan. What we did here is we modeled our school improvement plan, and what we did is we modeled it after the district strategy for district improvement, and we called it our strategy for school improvement. So the design is kind of like a one-pager that you see there. On page 3 is the district form that has this 4 strategic objectives and then the initiatives under each of those goals. So we have the building relationships is in strategic initiative number 1, high expectations is number 2, and implement and align and engage curriculum for number 3, and then improving structures for number 4. So what we did on that last page there is we designed our school improvement plan to fall in line with the district one. So you can see ours, that first column is relationships and communication. The first initiatives there, those are bullet points that we're looking at that we can work on here in the building to meet those. So that first one is that student survey where we have SABRS, which is similar to what our panorama survey that we had previously was a social emotional survey that we use for students. Next one there is classroom walkthroughs, learning tours, and sharing best practices. And third bullet point down on number 1 there is continue efforts with SEL curriculum and other initiatives. And then the last bullet is expanding efforts to keep our school community informed about learning activities, celebrations, and other events. And again, those kind of align not only just back towards with our district strategy for improvement. Next one there is high expectations. Again, this falls in with the first bullet there is about our MTSS process, just identifying students and making sure our support teams are working collaboratively to make sure our students have the supports that they need and our staff also do as well. Learning tours to guide implementation of effective instructional practices. And the last one there is utilizing EduClimber. It's our new data dashboard that is combining all of our different platforms together so that we can keep the information all there in one. So it's a new tool for us. We're still working out some of the kinks of it, but there's a lot of information in EduClimber, and it will continue to be a useful tool for us to kind of track student progress along the way and the interventions that we're putting in place. The third initiative there is under curriculum. We have actively participate in the K-12 curriculum review for math. That steering committee, we have staff here that are on that steering committee that Dr. Clifford is heading up with Mr. DeSantis, and then we have staff representatives here in Halifax, and then we're meeting up several times this year with Clinton and Kingston to look at our math curriculum. The next 2 bullets are continuing with the UBD units, and that last one there is designing and implementing common assessments in all grades.
What does UBD stand for?
Understanding by design.
Okay.
And the 4th column there is structures and processes. Again, that's just kind of using our strategy for district improvement, kind of reverting everything back through that, because that's where the admin team works through over the summer to fine tune each year. And then we want it to kind of trickle down to the admin level, the building level, and then we want our staff to work on it, so in their own classrooms and in their grade levels and teams. District-wide MTSS team, improve the ST process. Again, that's something that's always in the works, just fine-tuning and tweaking that to make sure that our plans and our process is clear. Next one is the district tech plan, and the last one is the capital budget process, planning and identifying all building needs. Sorry, I went through that fast there.
questions? Okay.
All right. The handbook is, this one's not on the list, no?
It's not on the agenda.
Okay,
So if any handbook changes would need to be listed on the agenda with a possible vote as well. I would also recommend that it include any TFM expectations and any Title IX changes before the committee
okay.
considers a vote.
So we should have it on the agenda for next month? Okay.
And then I'll send it to Kimberly, because Kimberly has it now, she's reviewing it.
Yeah. Because she may also have recommended
Yeah.
changes based upon regulations.
Okay. So the next piece there was looking at the students in, it says Star and Dibbles data. What I understand this is that the question was about what students are in each tier. Right? Is that how we were talking about it last time, is the way I
I
was?
think we were asking about how the data translated into the MCAS scores. You know, like, because you're doing the Star and Dibbles more frequently, and we wanted to see relationally how it was, close it was to the MCAS scores. Like, was it an accurate representation of what, you know, like, seeing, you know, like if you identified a struggle in stars, I mean, in Star and Dibbles data, then it, you know, or like, do they correlate basically?
Right,
That's the word
right.
I'm looking for. What?
Is it a predictor?
Yeah, is it a good predictor? Because that's what you're using to measure student achievement in between MCAS, so.
Okay, all right. All right, so so this chart then might not be useful to anyone. So that's why I misunderstood, because I was putting the students in tiers and looking at the percentages both in
Tiers
ELA
like
and
how?
math.
Sorry.
Because when we were talking last month, we were looking at the percentage of students in tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 for both ELA and math, and that's where I was going with this spreadsheet.
Okay.
And we were going off of our STAR data, the fall benchmark, and then using the MCAS data from the springtime the year before. So that's what this kind of spells out. But
Alright, it
it's not-
sounds like it'd still be helpful to look at, but,
Yeah, it might not answer specifically that question that you're asking, so I apologize for that, so I can pull that together. But what this spreadsheet tells you is what we did is we took our STAR data from the fall in 3 through 6, and anyone that falls in tier 3 would be a student that receives special education services, or they receive reading or math support services, and that could either be in the classroom or outside of the classroom. Tier 2, that would be any students that were not meeting or exceeding expectations, that were not receiving services from any type of interventionist, and that's basically what we're looking at as an intervention from the classroom teacher in the classroom. And then tier 1, we're looking at, that would be any student that is meeting or exceeding the expectations on our fall benchmark, and then compared with also our spring from the previous year.
Can I ask a question about the tier 1 students? So is it possible that students in tier 1 are getting support to achieve that meeting expectations? Or are all of the students in tier 1 meeting or exceeding expectations without any additional support?
No, they definitely are. They definitely are. But based upon STAR, it says that those students, the students should, with quality tier 1 instruction, the students should, by the end of the year, meet those benchmarks that are set. So that's what we hope for, that, you know, given the fact that all of our classroom teachers are teaching the standards and going from there, then it's expected that they should be meeting those benchmarks by the end of the year.
Okay.
But not all, it's not a perfect science, because then some students will change from tier 1 to tier 2.
Right, and I would imagine that once someone has support, they may not always need the support. They may
Exactly.
be able to manage without it
Yeah.
at some point.
Yep,
Okay.
definitely.
But also the stars and dibbles data would be able to tell you who's progressing from like tier 3 to tier 2, tier 2 to tier 1, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. So this week and next week, we're actually in our winter benchmark right now. So for the next meeting, I'll definitely be able to have more information to share that.
Because that is good too. I mean, this is interesting, but you know. And
Lauren, I'm looking back at our minutes from this last meeting, and it says, "It was requested that Mr. Boju break down the star and dibbles by the number of students in each category for the January meeting. There was a discussion regarding concern about staffing to support students." So I think it goes back to what Ms. Haney brought up earlier, is if we are determining that students do need more support through MTSS, are we able to meet their needs based on these numbers? So I just wanted to circle back to why we asked him for that information.
thank you.
Trying to think of what else there was. Was that?
Flyers.
You have 2 flyers.
And flyers there. All right. These flyers, spring season, South Shore Children's Chorus. Is that one of them?
Mhm.
And the other one is Girl Scouts flyer.
I would make a motion to accept these flyers to send out because I feel like the work's already been done by bringing it to school committee. And, I mean, we can discuss if someone wants to second it, I guess.
I'll second.
Okay, so my thought process being that we don't have a policy in place yet, I think probably the hardest part is bringing these to our school committee for the secretary. So, I mean, my personal opinion, which obviously you don't have to agree with me, but I'm thinking until we change the policy, I would figure on sending them out, although I do see value in the new policy too, because, you know, people are getting a lot of information from the schools, but I don't want to be arbitrary, I guess, so.
Yeah, I get that logic. I think I have questions around, like, I think it's more than just bringing it to the school committee. Like, I would imagine there's a lot of labor, printing it, getting it to all the students, getting like.
Well, I think it's all electronic, thankfully.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So paper copies of these flyers don't go home?
No, not unless the family requests it.
Okay.
Which is a good, yeah, no, I mean, I see what you're saying, like, if that was the case, I'd be like, no, I don't want to waste
Yeah.
resources.
Can I ask when these flyers were received by the schools to be sent out now? Like, I'm just curious, like, when was this South Shore Children's flyer sent to the school?
Some we get in our office here, and some go to central office, but it's different for all of them. Right?
Yeah, because the dates on that one are,
Or,
They
yeah, and I
passed
know that
already?
football was the same way.
yeah.
And I know that football sent
Oh,
it
yeah.
in way early, because I actually went to their board and yelled at them for that. And they said, no, we brought it to the school very, very early on, your school never distributed it fast enough. So I'm just very curious as to when this is.
So
How-
if we receive them prior to a school committee meeting, we bring them to the school committee meeting. If the dates no longer apply, but we still bring it to the school committee. So we can't, some of these, based upon the policy, let's say there was no meeting in whenever that football flyer came in, you wouldn't see it until the next school committee meeting. That information, if shared by, if sent to Karen, Karen would explain to them when the next school committee meeting was, but that, we don't call a meeting to approve a flyer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, like,
That's why I was just curious when this came out. Sorry, I was just curious, like, when we got it, like, what's the process of like, okay, we get it, are we gonna bring it to school committee, or like, is it automatically, okay, I got this flyer, I'm gonna bring it to school committee? Or is it like, this actually goes towards our children, we should bring this to school. I mean, I'm just curious what the process is on those flyers. Because I'm gonna tell you, I don't agree with like the not allowing any flyers going out with that policy, just because there's so many things that kids already don't know about. If anything, I think we need more flyers for extracurricular activities, like the flyer we approved for the, what was it, National Grid, or what was that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure, that one, I don't think that one doesn't need to go out to anybody, in my opinion. But these ones, it's getting our kids active. I think that our kids do need to get these flyers. I don't like that policy.
So one of the points that were brought up in the policy subcommittee is that this process is actually antiquated, that most people have the ability to send things out on their own. So what they're taking advantage of is our staffing and our hours to not only bring it to you to have this discussion, but also for them to scan the PDF and then send it out to the community. So the other thing that you may want to consider is that not everything that comes to us is nonprofit. And so some people do have an issue with some people benefiting from advertising through the school system, because they personally will benefit from the events that take place, albeit they may be wonderful events for children, but nonetheless, there's a financial benefit to the group or the person who's advertising it through our schools. So that's some of the things that we hear. In addition, we also get concerns about the cost of certain things and things of that nature. So, and it's also questions like, when was this received? So
Right.
now that
That's what I was gonna say, like it makes, you know, you went to them, but they're like,
Oh, yeah,
oh, you sent it,
that's
you know,
exactly
like, so
what
then
I
you have like some, I don't know, and I do think like anything we can do to help reduce work in the schools at this point is a
Right.
good thing.
But also anything we can do to get our kids moving more is more important than asking somebody not to print a piece of paper and send it out. That's just my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of things I know that are happening in Kingston that, like Kingston lacrosse. I had no idea that we had lacrosse in our 3 towns, but they've had it. My kids could have played it 2 years ago and I had no idea, because it's not getting to us. It's not, we're one district, and I had no idea that my Halifax student could play Kingston lacrosse. I think that we're actually not sending out enough, in my personal opinion, as somebody with small children in the actual school. Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
The printing of the flyers, there is no reason why our district, Halifax, should be printing flyers for somebody. So if somebody comes with 700 flyers and says, please hand these out, the budget cuts and copier paper at the price that it is, we should be providing that service.
But it also takes man hours in the office to then distribute those out to the correct number of students in every classroom, and then the teacher then to hand those out to every student, and then most of them end up on the floor anyhow. But if we're sending them electronically, that whole discussion is mute.
So the other thing I would add is that although we like to say that we are one district in spirit, the reality is we're actually 4 separate distinct districts. So if a Kingston approves a flyer in Kingston, that doesn't mean it gets to go out to Halifax schools, because
we're a
we
different
are
school
4
community.
separate districts.
Can I ask a question? Where did the concern on this policy originate? Like, again,
office
we're
staff.
for
Office
Well-
staff.
office staff in this building?
I think all of the
All,
buildings.
like,
In multiple buildings.
Okay.
And again, it was brought to me as something to bring to the policy subcommittee.
yeah, I mean, Jessica, I hear you're concerned. I don't know that,
The Kingston lacrosse was just like an example I had in my brain. I just
No,
think that kids aren't doing enough.
I-
Like I see my own kid coming home from school and want to play on his Nintendo Switch, and he's 8 years old. Get outside.
yeah,
But
but
there's
there's
also a lot on the internet, like Kingston has a whole, like,
I'm not saying
website
there
version.
isn't, I'm
No,
just
no.
saying it shouldn't be on the parent. Parents are busy. When was the last time you saw somebody that had 2 parents that weren't both working full-time? It doesn't happen, because we can't afford to live like that. So then to say, hey, you guys need to now go find your activities for your kids to bring them to things that you, it's just, to have them print out a flyer and bring it and we hand it out, or electronically hand it out, I don't think that's a huge deal.
See,
But
my
I would say
opinion, I
too-
think that's what like community social media pages are for. Like I've, you know, been a part of extracurricular things that I've routinely posted on the Facebook for a town or whatever. And I'm not arguing the point. I just think, you know, it sounds like it's becoming laborsome for for staff, and we're talking about cutting real staff hours. I don't know, I just think we should be making more work for people that are.
Honestly, this is more of a discussion for the policy anyway, so, I mean, what's before us right now are these actual flyers, so, I would redirect us back to that.
Yeah, that's actually the question when we got the flyer.
Sure.
So I'll make a motion to approve both the Girl
There's
Scout.
already a motion, isn't there? Is there?
Yep, and
Yeah,
a second.
and it was seconded, so we can just vote. All right, Katie?
Yep.
Lori?
Yep.
Karen?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
And myself is yes. All right. Anything else, Mr. Beaudry?
That's it.
Okay. Sarah?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to start off with the financial report that was in your school committee files. On page 2, you'll notice that there's a school adjustment counselor that was moved from a special ed staff line to appropriate line, so that shows up as $0 budgeted, but an expenditure so far this year. The money was budgeted elsewhere, but we're paying it out of the appropriate line. The same thing on page 2, the psychologist. Again, it was budgeted elsewhere and moved to an appropriate line. On page 3, there's a lot of moving parts with special education. The special education bookkeeper maintains a separate spreadsheet tracking the special ed contracted services, tuitions, and transportation. So keeping in mind that with special ed, we're not just dealing with the operating budget. There is circuit breaker revolving account and the anticipated 240 grant funds. So the spreadsheet that the bookkeeper updated for this meeting shows an overall surplus of about $375,000 for contracted services, tuition, and transportation at this time.
Okay.
Moving on to grants. We received a grant from the 1-8 Foundation for Open SciEd, which is an open source science curriculum. So we received a $1,700 grant for science curriculum work from the 1-8 Foundation. And I'm seeking your approval for that grant.
I will make a motion to accept the 1-8 Foundation Open SciEd grant for $1,700.
Second.
Any discussion?
So is that for the existing 6th grade Open SciEd curriculum? Or
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
is
the
that
first.
the existing 6th grade Open SciEd curriculum that they already do?
That would be not a Sarah question. Patricia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll have a vote. Katie?
Yep.
Lori?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
And myself is a yes.
The next thing is you had asked me to calculate a per pupil expenditure estimate for FY24. That is data that's not available from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education yet. What I will tell you is there are pieces of the formula that the Department of Ed uses that I don't have access to, so we use something called the Schools Interoperability Framework, which means the computer system for with population of students talks to the Department of Education on a nightly basis. And so we always talk about October 1 enrollments as being our official enrollment, but if a kid moves in on October 2nd, then the Department of Education knows about it that night. So when Department of Ed does the calculation for per pupil expenditures, they use an average of the attendance across the year, and I don't have access to that information. So using my best guesstimate, my calculation for our per pupil expenditure for FY24 was $13,829 per student. And that, keep in mind, is the in-district is what we talked about. DESE also calculates per pupil expenditure for all students in the district. When I spoke with you at the last meeting, we were talking about within the walls of this building.
Any questions?
Questions about that? The next thing that you had asked me for was foundation budget percentages. So I calculated foundation budget starting and the percent increase, and I'm just gonna run through the numbers for you. You had asked for the past 5 years. So in FY '21, the foundation budget was $6,764,091. That was a 0.68% increase over the prior year. In FY '22, it was $6,881,456.
Is this written down anywhere?
I can put it in a folder real quick, but
Or I can, if
Not
you can
while I'm
slow down.
speaking.
Can you slow down? So I can write it down. Or, thanks. Can you start back at FY
FY
'21?
'21, $6,764,091.
Okay, and that was a 0.68 increase,
And
okay.
that was a 0.68 increase over the prior year.
Okay,
FY '22, $6,881,456. And that was a 1.74% increase over the previous year.
mm-hmm,
In FY '23, it was $7,179,616,
mm-hmm,
which was a 4.33% increase over the previous year.
okay,
FY '24, $7,849,455. And that was a 9.33% increase over the prior year.
okay,
For FY '25, $7,511,761 for a 4.3% decrease from the prior year.
okay.
And can I just, to make sure that I'm clear, each of these years, 21, 22, 23, and 24, we had level service budgets. Last year, we did not have level service. We made budget cuts.
Again, without looking at any
Yeah,
possible additions in front of me.
I think that's like a fair statement. I wouldn't hold anyone to it, but I think that holds true. So these are, if that is the case, from 21 to 24, those large percentage increases were just based on the cost of services increasing for the most part. We didn't do a lot of adding.
I believe in '23, several positions were added.
I know we added like the instrument teacher and, I can't remember what else. We definitely, and last year we added a long-term sub, but that was from the sub line, so it was,
So just to be clear, foundation budget is a number that's given to the town by the Department of Education. So the foundation budget is based on, hang on, let me look at my notes.
Special education too.
Foundation budget is what DESE determines as the level of expenditures in the town to provide an adequate education for the students. And the foundation budget is made up of two different things, the local contributions and then state aid. So the foundation budget is calculated without any consideration for what we're talking about in the budget process. In a couple of weeks, the foundation numbers will come out from the state along with the Chapter 70 aid.
Thank you for explaining that again. I do remember that from last month that you had explained that.
go ahead, go, sorry. Christine, sorry.
Yes, I think that when you see the costs go down for last year, I think we can pretty much assume that that was the special education out-of-district students. You had quite a few out-of-district students in grades 7 through 12 that were taken out of your budget. And I think that you see the increase of special education out of district, because remember, those students go till age 22. So as the costs increase, and if one more student can put it over, I think last year you probably saw a big decrease because of those students that
That's it, they took it from
transitioned
budget.
over to the high school, if that helps.
It does, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, bus fees.
The next thing you had asked about was bus fees. So I had access to a survey of, from different districts all across the state about bus fees. So going through the data, the minimum fee on the spreadsheet was $100, the maximum fee was $500. The average for all that charged fees was $258. I almost said thousands, because usually I talk about millions and thousands. $258.41. The minimum, so along with bus fees, most districts that have bus fees have a family cap. So the FY25 family cap minimum was $200 per family. The maximum was $1,150 per family, with an average of $607.86. And then the late fees varied and ranged from $25 to $300 for late fees for non-payment of bus fees. And any questions about bus fees? So the last piece you asked me for was the cost of water, which you'll also see in the budget presentation for tonight. It was approximately $25,000.
Okay. Any questions? All right, Dr. Clifford?
Hey everyone. Hello. I just have a few things tonight. First, I'll talk about district-wide information, and then secondary 7 through 12 information, and then K through 6 information. So the first piece that I'm going to talk about, the district-wide information, is really around the K through 12 curriculum review cycle, which I spoke about before. This year in particular, we're focusing on the Math Steering Committee. And so we have a Math Steering Committee that's been formed. It's a K through 12 committee. We have two subsets of that committee. One is a K through 6 core review team and a 7 through 12 core review team. The K through 6 team is going to be conducting a core program review. It's going to be a comprehensive process, including reviewing and selecting high-quality instructional materials. So we'll be looking for a new math curriculum, K through 6. And also 7 through 12, one of the main tasks of that group will be to look for a new math curriculum for grades 7 and 8. And the idea being that they align, that is consistent, and the transition from 6th grade to the middle school is a smooth one. So the Math Steering Committee meets 3 times during the years. They've met once already. They'll meet 2 times. And the K through 6 team met for the first time last Tuesday, and we'll be meeting several times throughout the spring. I, along with Brian DeSantis, head up that committee, and we have members from all over the districts, the 3 districts. We have a nice representation of teachers, special needs teachers, administrators, so it's a great group, and I'm excited to work with them. The 7 through 12 group met for the first time last Thursday with Dan Correa, who's the 7 through 12 math curriculum coordinator at the high school. And I also attended that meeting, and so they're underway looking at different curriculums for 7-8 in particular. We have some nice cross participation, meaning like the 7 through 12 committee, some members will come down and join us when we have publishers come in to ask questions about the curriculum, and then we'll have some K through 6 people also join the 7-8 team to also ask some questions and kind of have some nice alignment there. So that's happening, and that'll be happening all spring. We'll look at different curriculums, we'll have publishers come in, and then in the spring, we'll come to school committees and present sort of all of the work we've done and the findings and the recommendations at that point. But I'll keep you updated as time goes on. The other piece is the literacy needs assessment, which I've talked about. All of the focus groups, the inventories and surveys have been completed by all 4 districts. Our report from the Hill for Literacy will be provided at our meeting on January 23rd. That's with myself and the district literacy leadership team and the group from Hill. We'll meet with them on the 23rd. They'll go over the report, the findings from all those things that they did. And then March 6th, the larger group will meet again, and we'll use the report and the findings to create a literacy plan for the district. And I'll come back and talk about that more too when we solidify that. For secondary information, as you may know, student competency determination, MCAS is not a requirement for graduation anymore. Students must meet the local district graduation requirements, so we do have district graduation requirements at the high school, which all students must meet. Participation on MCAS is required by federal and state law. Some of the scholarships, the Adams, the Coplick, and the Sealed by Literacy will still continue to use MCAS scores to qualify, which is important for students to know and understand that. It can have some, ramifications for them if they're interested in those things. Elementary K through 6 information, writing professional learning community. So time was spent in November and early December looking at the common writing assessments that teachers were utilizing at the grade levels. They came together, they calibrated, they read all different examples of the writing, and were able to really use that to inform their instruction around writing. They'll do that again, where they'll have the students write to a common prompt, they'll collect them, they'll score them, they'll spend time using that information to inform their instruction, change it, alter it, depending on what the results tell them. Then also another piece is STAR reading and math and DIBELS assessments will begin here in January again, and the grade level data meetings after the assessments will happen between January 27th and February 7th. Also an important piece to keep in mind, the MCAS assessment windows have all been created for all of the schools, and that information should be going out in newsletters from the school. But just to keep in mind, English Language Arts will go from March 24th to April 18th. Math will go from April 28th to May 23rd. Science, Technology, Engineering will go from April 28th to May 23rd. And again, specific schedules for Halifax should be coming out from the office. So I just ask that folks take a look at those and make sure to put those on their calendars. And the last piece was just a state grant that they received at Kingston and Silver Lake in particular to help fund a multilingual newcomer enrollment support grant, and that's particular to Kingston and Silver Lake. So that's it. That's all I've got tonight. Thank you.
I have a quick question. So now that MCAS is not a requirement, what are we using for competency determinations at the high school?
So the high school is going to make a proposal to the school committee to eliminate the language that requires MCAS for competency determination. They will be using the courses that are aligned with the state standards as determining whether or not a student graduates.
So they have to receive a passing grade or? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just wondering.
Just a question about that. Is that a going forward, or if there is someone who previously didn't graduate or didn't meet the graduation requirements because they didn't have the MCAS test, can they now receive a?
I think it starts in spring. I think it's for the students that are graduating in 2025.
So it's not retrospective?
That's my understanding, yes.
Any other questions? Okay, Dr. Prue?
So before we get to the preliminary budget today, I'd like to draw your attention to the draft calendar in your packet. I will just go over some of the dates here for your consideration, and we are seeking a vote this evening. As you know, the calendar, before it can be shared with the community, needs to be approved by each of our 4 school committees. So you will note that we've tried to keep the dates in keeping with where we have placed certain half days or certain start days in the past. The 25th and the 26th are in-service days for teachers. The 27th of August would be the first day of school. I wanted to draw your attention to December of 2025. The 23rd would be a half day of school, and I would recommend that we not come in on January 2nd for one day that week, and just make it a full week from the 25th through January 2nd.
On 24th.
Yes, sorry.
No, that's okay.
The 23rd is the half day.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And then, the next thing I want to draw your attention to is May 29th as graduation date with a rain date of May 30th. And then the tentative last day of school, if there were no cancellations, weather related or emergency related cancellations, would be June 12th. However, we have a calendar with 5 emergency or cancellation days worked in, which would bring our tentative last day of school to June 22nd. And we also have an asterisk here on the calendar this year to try to avoid confusion that the last day of school for elementaries is a half day. So depending upon where that last day falls, it will be a half day for our elementary schools, and we still will be able to meet time on learning. So at this time, I am looking for an approval from the school committee and a possible motion to approve.
Have any other school districts or school committees voted?
Silver Lake and Kingston have both voted to approve the calendar. Plimpton is not until next week. They won't have a school committee meeting until next week.
The only thing I see that is a little tricky with this calendar is, God forbid, we do have the 5 snow days, or whatever the days are. It's the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, then Juneteenth, so then we would have to have our kids off for a long weekend, and then send them on the 22nd of June.
Yes.
I don't know, is it like possible anywhere in here to shave a day? Like, I know we added the 2nd, which is like, but then it pushes, which I agree with the 2nd, but is there anywhere in there that we can be like, okay, like what about the February 23rd in service for teachers? Like,
So-
is there like, I know this is already like out, I just am very,
We don't want to give up an in-service day. It's one of the 2 days during the school year that we can work with teachers on curriculum, instruction, assessment, data, things of that nature. So to, again, if you were going to take anything, it would be from vacation time. It wouldn't be an in-service day.
But this is building in additional days for snow days, which
Yes,
could,
which
might not happen.
which might not happen, I know, I'm just
Yeah,
thinking, but
I
like,
know, I hear
you
you.
know, like, you know, as a mom, you're like, oh, let's just, and in June,
They're checked out.
right, and like, the moms and the kids and the dads and the aunts, uncles and grandparents, everybody's checked out by June 22nd, so then to be like, oh, you can go on the 18th, and then you get a long weekend, and then 1 day, for a half day.
It could work out the opposite.
But I can guarantee my kids won't be here, so like, it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? I didn't know if there was any way, but now that I'm looking at it for like, very closely, there really isn't,
I mean, you know, I'm not good, it doesn't go the other way, we get more than 5 days, so.
right.
And it's been a long time since we've had that
That
many
many,
days.
it has.
Like, I mean,
Mhm.
I know that doesn't translate into future
I know,
weather.
I'm just like picturing what it's gonna actually.
Yeah,
What
Chris
it's gonna
jinxed
be
it,
like,
huh?
that's like my only
We
concern.
got a new snow blower, guys, don't worry, we're not gonna have snow for years.
Yeah, we are prepared now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the last 2 years, guys, no, or last year, so.
That's my only concern, just wanted to like throw that out there, but other than that, I would make a motion to approve it.
Okay. do you
I'll
want to-
second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Katie?
Yep.
Lori?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Okay, so our next item is the Halifax Elementary School preliminary budget. And while Kane is setting us up on the screen, I would just like to review the process that we used to get to this point. In the fall, we asked our principals to work with their schools to determine what their requests and needs would be, to take a look at trends and expenses from the previous year. And when we met with our principals, we then and had begun the conversation with our schools. We began talking about what type of information they would like to see presented. So what I'm going to ask the school committee is if we could present in whole and then open it up to questions, because there may be answers to your questions that are going to appear elsewhere in the budget presentation. But if we go first to our goals, you'll notice. Yep, next slide, please. that we were asked to present a 10% decrease by the town for FY, a 10% decrease on FY '25 for FY '26. So there's two things that we created that you'll see figures for tonight. We first created a level service budget, and then we went in and decreased that by the amount necessary in order to have a 10% decrease on FY '25. And so we'll show you what that means to the FY '26 budget. In terms of supporting the strategy for district improvement, there is absolutely no connection between supporting the strategy for district improvement and the 10% decrease. In fact, the reality is we would anticipate seeing more gaps in achievement, less support for students, and things of that nature. So while these are typically our goals, these cannot be our goals when you're looking at a 10% decrease.
So the FY '26 budget looks different. So when you look at the line item budget in your school committee folders, the line numbers change. So I'm in the process of redoing the chart of accounts to match the Department of Education chart of accounts. So I'm going to start this off by saying that there are only 6 ways that a school district can spend money. We spend money on professional, clerical, and other salaries. You'll notice I put a line right in the middle of the slide. The line in the middle of the slide, everything above that is paid out of payroll. Everything below that is paid out of accounts payable. So when I met with the principals and started talking about changing the chart of accounts, I explained to them, I met with principals and directors. I explained to them that they were going to be budgeting contracted services, supplies and materials, and other expenditures. So when their expenses come into the business office, they come in through our financial system into accounts payable, and that's what goes into the warrants that you see, and payroll is a whole separate piece, which the principals don't have too much control over. So with this new Halifax chart of accounts, this is a multi-step process. So over the course of October through now, I've created the FY '26 budget with the new budget lines. In February through May, I have to input everything into our financial software, upload the approved budget into the financial software in June, and then we're going to go live on July 1st. So when you look at the budget, there are broad categories of accounts. We school business managers refer to them as the 1,000s, 2,000s, 3,000s. So the 1,000 accounts are district leadership and administration. The 2,000s are instructional services. You'll notice that most of the accounts that you see on the budget are 2,000 accounts. It's instruction. We're a school district. That's what we do. The 3,000s are other school services. 4,000s are operations and maintenance of the physical plant. Included in that is technology networking. That's part of your wiring and pieces that connect everything are part of the physical plant. 5,000 are fixed charges. You won't see 5,000s in the Halifax budget because that's things like benefits, and the benefits for your staff are paid through the town. 6,000s are community services. That's very rare for any district in Massachusetts to pay in community services. 7,000 acquisition, improvement, and replacement of fixed assets. So that those 7,000 accounts are generally equipment purchases or non-instructional equipment over $5,000. So sometimes technology or maintenance of the building falls in that. Like if you're putting in a boiler, that's more than $5,000 that would go there. The 8,000 is debt retirement. This district is part of the town. The town handles any debt. And then 9,000 is programs with other schools. That is tuitions for special education schools and for the vocational agricultural schools that students attend. Into your presentation, I put a grid think of this grid as being 4 quadrants. The top left-hand corner is the FY26 budget broken down by those broad categories, the 1,000 through 9,000, and then across the top, regular ed, special ed, and then vocational ed. The bottom left-hand quadrant is the FY25 budget broken up in the same fashion. The top right-hand quadrant is the percent increase in each category from the FY25 to FY26 budget. And then the bottom right-hand quadrant is the amount of increase from FY25 to FY26.
I would just add that those numbers reflect a level services budget.
Yes, thank you. So the town has requested a 10% decrease on FY25 Halifax Elementary School budget for FY26. A 10% decrease to the FY25 budget would be $6,139,924. The Halifax Elementary level service budget for FY26 is $8,400,140. So after we deduct out any anticipated circuit breaker of $132,705, there's a difference of approximately $2.13 million that we need to address. So the central administrative team and the school administrative team met and went through this, and these are the, oh, sorry, I'm a slide ahead myself. We met and we created the cuts, which were on the next slide. In the level service budget, utilities were included with an increase over a 4-year average. The shared cost budget is included, but it has not been voted. The potential REAP grant is not included. We don't have a projection for the REAP grant yet. Generally, that's used for technology purchases in Halifax. Homeless and foster transportation has been adjusted based on prior year's expenses. There's no known retirements at this time. And for out-of-district vocational, Halifax currently has 1 student that's grade 9, 10, or 11 that's currently in a vocational program. And there are 3 placements budgeted in this budget. And again, we will know definitely by April 1st, that's when students get their acceptance letters to those vocational agricultural schools and have to make a commitment by. Put in more slides than I thought. In FY25, it's important to remember this. In FY25, we offset the budget by using $787,000 of circuit breaker and 240 grant funds. The 23% increase for level service does not account for this. If we factor those tuitions and services into the FY25 budget, the increase is only 10.4%. Net school spending, we have concerns about net school spending. Our FY25 net school spending number was $7.6 million. We also have concerns about maintenance of effort. The Special Education Individuals with Disabilities Education Act grant, which is a long name, which we usually call the 240 grant. The 240 grant requires what's called a maintenance of effort. If you spend $1 million in FY23, then you have to spend $1.1 million in FY24 and $1.2 million. So the documentation of the maintenance effort is part of the approval process for the next year's grant, and we have concerns that if the amount of money spent on special education is decreased, we won't be able to make maintenance of effort for future grant funds. So the tier 1 cuts, $55,168 in curriculum, $17,500 in supplies and equipment, $2,500 in library books, and $2,440 in subscriptions, for a total of $77,608. These cuts have already been made and are reflected in the budget spreadsheet, so that line item budget that was in your packets already has the tier 1 cuts in it. Keep in mind that we're shooting for $2.1 million in cuts, which is a 90% of the FY25 number. Tier 2 cuts, 4 paraprofessionals for $100,000, 12.6 FTE HTA members. Those are teachers for $917,225 for a total in the Tier 2 cuts of $1,017,225. Before we go from Tier 2 to Tier 3, it's important that we keep in mind revenue options. We've already talked about bus fees for students that live under 2 miles from the district. Another idea would be to change to half-day kindergarten and charge a tuition for full-day kindergarten. Tier 3 would be cutting an additional 0.8 paraprofessionals for $23,000, another 7.3 teachers for $498,000 for a total of $521,000. So we put in your packets in the presentation the class sizes with the Tier 1, 2, and 3 cuts. The class sizes would be what's listed on the right-hand side here: 43 in kindergarten, 41 first grade, 45 second, 34 third grade, 34 fourth grade, 39 fifth grade, 35 sixth grade. So your average class size would be 39 students. Tier 4 cuts would be 7 teachers for $560,000. The Tier 1 through 4 brings us to the total of $2.1 million in cuts, which is what the town has asked us to do. If you take a look at the right-hand side, that makes 1 teacher left per grade level with outrageous class sizes that we don't know we have rooms that they would fit in. Kane, this is your slide.
Thanks, Sarah. So here we were just breaking it down in each tier level. So Tier 1, when we look back on it, we were looking at only reduced supply lines. There would not be any impact on staff or students besides the reduced supply lines for subscriptions and curriculum materials. Tier 2 impact, class sizes will increase by 8 students per classroom on average. And special ed caseload will also increase by 6 students per teacher on average. We would have reduced special education support in all classrooms, reduced specialist offerings for all students, and there will be no math or ELA supports offered at all beyond the classroom teacher. The Tier 3 impact on students and staff, class sizes would increase by 15 students per classroom on average. Again, reduced special education supports, even more reduced specialist offerings for all students. And this will also have reduced social and emotional supports and guidance, reduced main office staff, and reduced custodial staff. The Tier 4 impact is just not really feasible here, and that's why we just indicated that it would be academic, health, legal, and safety concerns if we were to get the Tier 4 level. Keep going. The goods?
Yeah.
All right, so this is the level service proposal. We had put in there that we're just bringing back the fact that we had to make $700,000 in cuts from FY25. It would be extremely difficult to continue with this with lost services and supervision. What we lost in 25 was a reading teacher, instrument teacher, 4 paraprofessionals, a Title I teacher, part-time behaviorist, part-time custodian, part-time office para, and 3 FTE specialists, 2.8 FTE. And just to point out, as we mentioned last meeting, that Halifax is currently the 6th lowest out of 398 and per pupil expenditures in the state of Massachusetts. In an ideal world, this is what we would like to propose beyond the level service. These positions are not included in the budget, but We were looking at adding a special ed teacher for $68,000 to reduce the caseload for each of our teachers. 4 part-time lunch and recess paraprofessionals costing $40,000. This, by having lunch and recess paras, then our existing paraprofessionals would not be doing 3-4 duties that they're doing now, and they would be able to just service students that are on IEPs in the grade levels that they service. And then we're proposing behaviorist job description change from a BCBA to an RBT. We don't anticipate any cost change because the BCBA is only part-time. We have not had any success finding anyone to fill that position, but if we were to change that language to look for an RBT, we would be able to look at the same cost by having an RBT for full-time instead of a BCBA at part-time. And we're proposing a funding source change proposal for our math interventionist. Right now, our math interventionist is covered partly by the Title I grant, which then takes away from having an additional Title I person. So if we were to able to change that back, our math interventionist wouldn't be reliant on a grant, and we would be able to add back a title person to help, because as of right now this year, we only have 1 title teacher in the building. And then this might be a bigger discussion, OT, PT staffing. Right now, we currently contract OT and PT services. It might be something that we look into because the cost that we're paying for OT and PT is much higher right now because we are contracting, but if we actually look to hire these people on staff, I would imagine that it would be a cost neutral or a cost savings if we had done this approach. Or maybe we could share with Plimpton or Kingston or have some other type model in that sense. With these positions here, the total estimated increase with all of these positions is $134,000. Just by adding these, we believe that it would have a significant impact on the educational offerings here. Right now, there's not much in terms of the capital needs, just based upon the situation that we're in FY25. The water testing and plumbing was really a hot button, and that, as we mentioned, was a little under $25,000 for the cost from the end of last year and into this year. And for FY26, we're just continuing to look to work with upgrading the student and staff bathrooms, and our gym bleachers are something that's always been on the docket that we're definitely looking to work on.
So at this point, we ask the school committee to review both the level service proposals, the beyond level service proposals, and the request from the town to consider whether or not the school committee will be presenting the town with any capital plan requests, because those would need to be received by the town for their warrant articles for consideration. And in addition, in January, we hope to have Chapter 7, by the end of January, we hope to have Chapter 70 numbers available. We're asking you in terms of what would you like to see for our next meeting, if you have next steps for us. In order for us to be prepared for the next meeting, what is it that we can provide for you?
What was the amount, remember right after the town meeting, there was an amount of money that we cut a bunch of money and then we gave it back to the town, and then we couldn't take it back because we'd already given it. What was that amount of money?
It's like 100,000, but that is what you use for the capital projects. Like I've talked to the town about that. And
Keep in mind that we had some unpaid prior year bills that were paid out of that already. So it was originally around $143,000. If you look back in your previous school committee meetings, you can see that we revised the closeout 2 times at the direction of the town. And it reduced that number that was turned over to the town both times.
Another question, half-day kindergarten, we would have to bus them, correct, back? So would that just increase the busing again, and that would cause more issues?
that's my question, is how much, if we switch to half-day kindergarten with midday busing cost?
And would there be a lottery for these students? Would it be like a as needed for half day, full day? Like, how would that work?
It would be half day unless people pay to go for full day.
Or if they're low income.
Okay.
Do we have to offer full day in general? Can we charge, like, do we have to offer kindergarten?
Kindergarten's not even required.
Exactly, so can we charge, that's mine. Do you, can we charge for kindergarten?
We can charge for kindergarten.
But
It
it's not
was covered by
required
a
for
grant, right? It was,
No, under FAPE, I don't believe we can just charge for
At least
kindergarten.
We have to have some kindergarten free.
I believe, so I looked this up earlier and I believe that and I could have read it wrong, but I believe that Massachusetts law says that we are required to provide free half-day, but may charge for full day.
well, that makes.
If they're low income, then they could still opt for full day.
So we can reduce to half day, we can only charge, I mean, we wouldn't charge for kindergarten unless it was full day. But my concern would be the busing, like how much would the additional busing cost, which is all a bunch of moving parts, but also if we were going to consider these things, like I know when I lived in Bridgewater, we paid for one of our daughters to go to full day kindergarten and they were already asking for commitments like right now. So like, is it even a possibility for next year? Like realistically speaking, changing something like that, I guess. I mean, we'd have to like know by the next meeting if we can actually do it.
So that, we can give you some estimates, but until
Okay.
we know who actually is interested, you're gonna be working with very, very shaky numbers. In addition, I don't think you're gonna be talking about the amount of money that you're gonna need.
No, I mean, but I'm just saying like as far as,
Wait, it's not $2 million and
It will not be that.
but I mean, it could fund the kindergarten teachers possibly, like that's.
In theory, that's what the
that's
cost
nice. So, like-
should cover.
Right,
But again, you are gonna see some potential, depending upon the needs of the busing, depending upon who's interested, it may or may not cover the cost of the full-day teachers.
Keep in mind, you wouldn't need 8 buses running around town to pick up kindergarten
it would be like
students.
2, right?
Or maybe even 1, depending on the number of kindergarten students.
My biggest concern with us going to half-day is not having students ready for first grade. Because if you think about the day of kindergarten, having subbed in first grade, or kindergarten, I can tell you that they would come in, unpack, they would eat their breakfast, you would do some sort of work with them, and before you know it, they are going back home again. You're not gonna have enough hours to cover enough curriculum. So there's gonna be some gaps by the time those students get to first grade.
I
it's
know.
not even mandatory to send your kid to kindergarten in the state of Massachusetts.
Well,
so
I mean,
it doesn't really.
we're-
I don't know that we have an appetite in this town to eliminate kindergarten though. I mean, I know that
Well, we can't-
money's tight and that our budget and people
I
don't
would
want to
never
spend
eliminate
money.
kindergarten
No,
altogether.
no, but I'm just saying,
the
like,
half- the
I
half
feel
day.
like some of these conversations, like, I'm really uncomfortable with having a conversation about, like, we don't need to do kindergarten.
Well, I mean, I agree. None of this conversation wants to be had, 100%, like none of it. But if we can't get more money from the town, we have no choice.
Yeah.
If we
I
can't,
get
and
that.
what I mean is from the townspeople, if people
I
will
get
not
that.
vote to support our schools, we have no choice. The amount of money we have is the amount of money we have. We're not sitting here wanting to do any of this. I want to provide at least, none of us wanted to make the cuts last year.
I agree, and I have a lot of regret over the decisions
Yeah,
that I
so kicking
voted
the
for
butt.
last
Kicking
year.
the butt when we had leftover and they just.
It was-
put
it
There's
was
always
that.
money left over though.
It was that, but it was also the fact that this was not the approach that another town in our district took. They put it to town meeting, and their town voted it in. And I will say today, and you're gonna do a lot, it's gonna take a lot to change my mind, but I don't really see myself voting for any cuts.
I agree. I came to this meeting thinking I'm gonna propose that we don't make any cuts and tell the town that we cut way too much last year, and it's not fair. Like, the Halifax Elementary School is the future of our town, so let's just cut their education and let's make a class size of, what was that? 85, 43 to 80, 45 to 85 students, they're gonna have a great education with that.
So-
And then also there's no paras. So 1 to 45, is that even legal?
I'm a little hot right now, so just with all due respect about all of this, I respect the folks at this table that are trying to put options out there and figure it out, because it is untenable and it is a really difficult situation to solve. But the bottom line is, in the town of Halifax, people need to support education. They need to fund it and they need to support it. And I think we as a school committee need to drive that home and, you know, leave it up to the town. At a certain point, if the town doesn't vote for it, we run the risk of having the state come in if we don't, you know, fund the school appropriately. So I think we need to take the Band-Aid off a little bit in the way that we communicate to taxpayers in this town. And quite frankly, our administrator and finance committee and our board of selectmen, who are all doing noble work to try to figure us out of this mess. But to continue to cut, I wasn't comfortable with what we cut last year. I mean, 10% is just, it just doesn't, I don't see how we can.
I was hoping to put the .8 back to the 1.
Exactly. And, you know, we are creating, there's a reason we're talking about full regionalization every month. We are creating inequity in our school district. Each school, each elementary school is not equitable, in my opinion. If we're cutting more services than Kingston or Clinton are cutting, it's not fair.
No, and something I do want to take into consideration is there's a limit to how much more our town can even collect tax-wise. So we have to keep that in mind with what our budget is. I mean, a budget that's 23% more than last year, which I totally understand the reasons why it was explained great. But the reality of that, even with a possible override, we have to make considerations. Last year we were able to cut 2 buses and I don't think it was painful at all. I mean, so I feel like we need to go through our budget while considering what's best for education, but also understanding the needs of the town, because if we don't have a fire department, we have a volunteer fire department, all of our home insurance will go up. And I'm education first, that's why I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
But I'm also concerned about whether our town will actually vote for an override. So there has to be a lot of boots on ground kind of work saying, this is what our school could possibly look like.
Right.
You know, which again, is it even legal? You know, so.
And those conversations need to be happening in our community today, not in March.
Right. So.
I would like to still leave the conversation for paying for buses out there, though. I think that that's not a huge ask. I'm not saying.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
$1,000 family cap, but.
Right. No, I mean, I think there are things we can do within our budget to meet the town more. You know, I think there's efficiencies we can have in our budget that, that's my personal opinion. There's some efficiencies we can have that don't impact education, but also are fiscally responsible. I mean, a 23% increase, like, ugh, you know?
Yeah.
We can't, I mean, I think it won't be that bad next year, I hope. But, you know, I mean, it's hard to.
Who knows?
Yeah, but I mean, that's not sustainable either. So how do we figure out what to, because we can't go to the town every year and say,
I just think it's an unrealistic request for the town to come and say, cut 10% of your budget.
For what we did last year.
Yeah, I mean,
and
we
I
cut
honestly,
significantly last year, and you know, I mean, we heard at the beginning of this meeting, the impact of those cuts, so.
I honestly think if the townspeople were presented with these tiered cuts at a town meeting, they would be up in arms. I mean, I'm sad that we don't have more townspeople here seeing this today. Because if they did see it, I think that yes, our tax rates are high. We're paying $14.40 right now. And that's the highest on the South Shore. I mean, Carver is next. I actually went through and looked. It's cheaper for someone to move to the Cape than it is to live in Halifax because our tax rates are so high.
But we're the 6th lowest per
But
student.
can I say something
Right,
about that?
so
No, but
that-
wait 1 second on that. That's compared to K through 12 in other districts. If we were to look at just elementary schools, it's a little bit of a misleading number because it costs less to educate elementary students than it does
Agreed.
7 through 12. So while yes, that's an alarming number, it's not comparing apples to apples. Like I'm not saying that we don't need to consider the per pupil expenditure because that's something we have to have, but we have to keep in mind that most districts include everyone K through 12, and we're our own little district here, K through 6.
But if you look at the 6 that pay less than us, they are virtual schools
Yeah.
and a charter school.
2 virtual schools, 1 charter school,
Yeah.
and then
No, I mean, it's
Those are the
all,
only schools that pay less per
Yeah.
pupil.
Halifax doesn't support education at the taxpayer level.
but I feel like that's when I said, let's see what it would look like. Let's do what the town asked and see what it would look like for the purpose of knowing what as a school committee, we're going to need to ask for from the town. And that's the only people that can do it, is the town at town meeting. So, this is what was asked, we presented it.
And I'm gonna propose that we ask the town for all of it, because we cut everything last year.
But I
It's the
also,
only fair way to be. I mean, there's people in here there's people in this town that haven't had kids yet. Do you think, like, they're not gonna vote to have 45 kids in a classroom?
well, the thing is you have to have people at town meeting that will vote for the school. That's the bottom line. Because that doesn't happen very often.
Can I ask, is there any way to ask the PTO to help pay for some things like bleachers and things like that? Like if it's like the bleachers has been on there as long as I've been part of this committee, and I know it's been on there because you guys have been saying it from when I joined the committee. How much is that costing again?
But the bleachers is not in our budget. That's
Right,
like a
that's
separate.
just a separate
capital,
bit, but it's part of this whole thing,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just curious. Like, is there any way to ask the PTO to at least help with that potentially? I just feel like that has been an issue with this school for a long time. And the town uses it a lot, so I guess actually asking the PTO for it, we should just ask the town for it. So maybe I take that.
That's okay. This is a preliminary budget. It's information at this point. I appreciate you putting it all together. It was what we needed to see. And as far as going forward, I still feel like we need to address declining enrollment at HES and would like some proposals of what it would look like if we adjusted some of the older grades. Personally, like 3 through 6.
We haven't had declining enrollment.
We've declined by 100 students in the last 10 years.
Yeah, but now it's going right back up. The kindergarten class with my son 2 years ago was 90, and then the year after it was 82. It's not declining.
Well,
It's actually up. The other classes were 67, 67, 77. It's going up.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a shift towards moving
Yeah,
back
it's
up.
not. I've been joking about this since I joined this committee that COVID babies are coming, and I promise you, they are coming.
I know, but I'm
have
just
them.
upset we never adjusted because,
It's too late to adjust it now, though, in my opinion. We have kids coming up.
but we have to make decisions based on what's in front of us as well.
We made them last year, and I think that we tell the town that we made them all last year. I would,
You can tell the town, but you can't force them to vote a certain way. I'm just saying there's reality, there's what we want, and we have to be able to balance them both.
last year, we did all of the cuts that they asked, and some.
And Kingston did a bold move and asked for the money at town meeting. We
And they
could,
won.
they did, but we're not Kingston.
Yeah, and now
They
they
also
have
voted
some
to pass the
serious cuts they
MBTA.
also have to make.
Yeah, they're making serious cuts this year as well, and their class sizes are much bigger, and, this is an education problem.
Mhm.
It is.
It's a Halifax problem because it affects us, but it's also an education problem.
The thing that bothers me the most is that we all know that there's the cost of inflation. And some of these inflation costs we can't avoid because they're mandated or supported by laws. For instance, if I remember correctly, there was a meeting where it was mentioned some special education costs. The contractor's allowed to raise their costs by, if I remember correctly, 3.8% every year. These are contracted people who are out to make a buck, right? And so of course they're gonna raise their fees. So to be asked to reduce by 10% when we know there's inflation already involved, I think is, for lack of better terms, asinine. It's backwards math.
3.8 is the majority, but not all of the schools.
Right.
So you have some schools that are being allowed by the state to increase in double-digit percentages.
Cardinal Cushing.
But the other
Amigo.
thing, oh, sorry, just back to like OT, PT staffing, we take that contracting line, and can we hire enough people in-house?
So think about the OT-PT conversation, kind of like the decision about when you're gonna feed your family for the week. Do you wanna go to a restaurant for 7 nights, or do you wanna cook dinner? And so right now, we're bringing our OT-PT to the restaurant.
Right.
and
Well, that's
we're
what I'm
paying-
saying, that's a
That would
change
be a
we can
cost
make,
savings.
that I would
So-
really like to look
But
into.
that would require the investment in additional staff. So in the long run, would it pay out? Yes.
Well, but we also have the line that we're paying the contractors out of, so we can use that line to hire
Yes.
additional OT, PT staff, and it would be a wash,
be
essentially.
part-time or
Especially if
full-time?
we use your plan to hire the, yes.
The best scenario
Yes.
for OT and PT is to have a cost share. Because if you only need 3/4 of a week, why should you pay for a full week?
Right, but we
Because
can
now
share
I
it.
can take that 1/4 and share it over to another district. So that would have to be looked at by everybody as a cost share. That's the way to get the most bang for your buck, so to speak, if you're going to make that move. Preliminary numbers, and please don't quote me, although I know it's going to be part of the notes, it would be a savings, but again, it would be a savings as a cost share and not directly to the school.
Do we know how many OT, PT staff would have to be hired in order to?
I have some
meet our
preliminary
needs?
numbers, yes, for
Okay.
the district. I do have that. They're going to be double checked.
Okay, because I would like that for the next meeting, and then to know
Sure.
if there's savings there. Like, these are the things that I would like to do regardless, because they are good decisions. That it's just like bringing things in-house, is always, better. So like, anything we can do like that is smart for our budget. Like, and also, you were saying like you could hire OT assistants as opposed to.
Yes, you can, yes,
So,
and
which
that's
is
in
a-
the plan.
Exactly, so,
And Silver Lake has, we calculated almost 20% of students with OT, and the national average is 7.5 on students with IEPs. So that's something else we have to kind of take a look at as well.
so those are things like for next time, I'd like to see what the difference could be if we hired in-house versus our contracting, because like you said, the contracting is always going to be more expensive, and plus they're also doing our evaluations, which makes me a little suspect, honestly. So things like that I want to look into, and also, like I said, I would like to see, I know we have to put it to a vote, but I would still like to see numbers for changing staffing levels. Just because we have to examine everything.
So if I'm hearing correctly, for our next meeting, we will have a, albeit shaky, proposal, because it would be based on certain numbers that we can't guarantee, for charging tuition for full-day K, a proposal for bus payment and what that could possibly save, looking at some of the older grades 3 through 6 and showing you what it would mean with the reduction of 1 teacher in those grades or 2 teachers in those grades versus what we
Yes.
went down to this evening. And a proposal for OTPT in-house, and what that could potentially save.
Can I make a motion that we allow Principal Beaudry to change the behavior job description from BCBA to RBT tonight so that he can begin to attempt to fill the position that has
Yes.
not been able to be filled?
I'll second.
Okay, you got it.
Sorry.
No, it's fine, you're good. All right. Yeah, I went to do that, thank you. All right, roll call vote, Katie?
Yep.
Lori? Yes. Karen?
Yes.
Jessica? Yes. And myself is a yes. So I feel like the best thing to do is have as much information, scenarios that are possible, just because we need to be able to educate to the best of our ability, and I don't know what the town is gonna do, but I really would ask people to really talk to people and say, you have to come to town meeting. And I don't know if we can share, I don't know, I don't wanna like, I don't know, yes?
You've mentioned conversations at town meeting several times. In order to have this conversation at town meeting, there would have to be a warrant article, and so that would require communication between the school committee and the select board and the FinCom and the town manager.
Okay, and it's not too late for that?
Nope.
Okay. Can you help us with that, or help me? Thank you. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, I think that's important.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know when the town meeting is?
Monday and May.
So say that we decide to make cuts, or that we decide not to make cuts, and then we don't get, they don't vote. Say worst case scenario, we have this crazy budget where we have 6 or 7 full-time teachers. What are we gonna do if we can't?
I mean, I think it brings up a whole bunch of legal issues that, and one of which
So
being,
that's what I'm saying,
I
like,
don't believe we'd meet minimum net school spending. I don't
Yeah.
believe we'd meet maintenance of effort.
Yep.
So we would have some serious ramifications there.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, so where can we go from there and work backwards against the town and say, look, we can't cut that
We'll
much
have a-
because we can't run a school with that much of a cut,
We'll
and
have
start there, you know what I mean?
We'll have a better sense at the end of January when we can at least look at the Chapter 70 funding. So that's why school budgets typically aren't.
Excuse me for not knowing this answer. What is the minimum teacher to student ratio that we're allowed to have? Like 1 to?
There's
what?
no minimum ratio, however, your rooms aren't gonna be able to hold.
There's no minimum
The-
ratio on, like, it can't be like 1 to 40?
No,
We
there's
have
no,
one to
there's no
40.
maximum class size. There is a room capacity.
Occupancy, yeah.
So you could have some classes that are large, but you only have so many places where you could put large classes, the library being one of them, the gymnasium being another. But again, physical education is a state requirement. So the cafeteria is another, but it's only available at certain points in the day because children are eating there.
I had a question too, about the 240 grant requires the maintenance of effort. And I mean, I'm just sort of confirming, we can't decrease ed spending because it's required by law, correct? Like, I mean, I don't want to, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying there's,
Depends on what's required. Anything that's required in a child's plan, we have to fund.
right. So there's no way to decrease it then, I mean. Sorry.
There are some exceptions that they allow us, right? So, for example, when our 7th grade students in Silver Lake, out-of-district students, went over to the high school into Silver Lake budget, I could say, well, the reason why we're not paying all of this money this year is because all of these students now are in Silver Lake. So they allow for some exceptions. If we have somebody retire who's making $100 and something thousand, right? And then we hire somebody for $60,000. That's a big difference in pay. That's considered an
Okay,
exception.
okay.
So there are some exceptions that they allow us. However, not to this level, not.
No, I know, no, and I don't want that, like, I'm just wondering how it was, like, scenarios that, because I wasn't aware of any, but
Yeah,
that makes
a
sense, so I
couple.
appreciate it.
There are a
Thank
couple
you.
they allow, yes.
So I was like, I don't think we could ever decrease, just because they're, state mandated and federally are so necessary, but, does anyone else have any other questions, or?
So say we're at whatever that number is that maybe we can try to get to start with the town and say this is the least we could be. So say that's 2 teachers per grade, and say that's, so what would that be, about 45 students per class? That's average. So I don't even know if it's possible, but can we go back to hybrid learning, and then that'll scare everyone to get to town meeting? Then they'll vote. Like, then you can guarantee 700 parents will
Yes
make
and,
a vote.
yes and no. That's about the only thing you probably could afford with that
That's what
budget,
I'm
that would
saying,
be
right?
safe and responsible.
Right.
The problem is that the state doesn't recognize, public schools are not able to do virtual learning anymore. And so when we switched over after the pandemic, the state said, this is
Has to be in
in-person
person.
learning.
Well, I mean, I think it's information that people need to know, and I'm curious, you know, the town asked us to prepare this budget. I think it's going to be pretty surprising when it's looked at, so, and I'm talking about the town, like town hall, so we can see how dire it is, and I don't think, I mean, I don't know if I don't think that's where we're gonna land, obviously, but it is important to have the information, as shocking as it is.
The past few town meetings haven't been like scarce. They've been pretty full, right?
They've been pretty full, but the things that have been voted have not been approved. The things that we spend money on have pretty much been voted down. So that's my concern, is that we get in front of the town meeting and there's an appetite to, we can't spend any more money, we don't have it. And what happens? So.
And this is everywhere, it's not mismanagement, it's not, cost of education is
Right.
going up. So it's, I mean, it's a problem everywhere, so, and the money has to come from somewhere, we don't have any business in town, so it has to come from the residents through their taxes, if they wanna have a robust educational system that we currently have, you know, so, anyway.
How do those virtual schools, you mentioned they have lower per student expenditure? So
Well,
they're
you don't, if you're a virtual school, you don't have to pay for heat, you don't
Right.
have to pay
No,
for.
but how, are they still public? Like, how are they getting in that?
There are exceptions to the rules, we're not one of them.
And again, that's also why, I mean, just to, since we're in a public meeting, that's why we want to regionalize, because we have redundancies. We can better work between schools to share, you know, resources, and instead of being 4 separate districts like we are right now, you know, we can, I just think overall, you know, this is why it's part of the discussion, at least with 2 of the school committees. And
I would anticipate one of your biggest buckets of savings will be your regional transportation. So if we became fully regionalized, the elementary schools would benefit from that because they would be entitled to that transportation reimbursement that you're currently not receiving. And that's hundreds of thousands.
I also heard that there's a grant for electric buses. I know.
So, I had a conversation with our bus company for a student, and they wanted to know where we stood on electric buses. And electric buses are great for the environment. One of the problems with electric buses is it's $400,000 for one bus. And when you're paying $180,000 for a diesel bus and $400,000 for an electric, really the question the first student asked me was if they, really the behind the scenes question was, would we want to pay for the capital outlay? And I basically said at this, you know,
13 million.
at this point in time, I don't think it would be prudent for us to talk about electric buses. My understanding is the grant money is not as plentiful as it used to be. So if you got on board 6, 7, 8 years ago, you could have had a fleet of multiple electric buses for very little investment. But my understanding is that the buy-in now is not as easy.
Stupid question. What about solar on the school to offset the electric bill?
So the school is the property of the town, and the town would need to move forward with that.
So about a year and a half ago, if I remember correctly, Mr. Seelig, if he's still here, can confirm this. I believe the town selectmen voted to entertain the idea of solar fields that would help curb the cost.
Can I speak, Madam Chair?
yes, you may speak.
So we did, we're looking at putting a solar field on Hemlock. that would help us via revenue source. Unfortunately, we have a landfill cap situation that we have to take care of before any sort of solar goes on there. And that has just recently been presented to us. So unfortunately, before we can entertain any sort of solar project, we need to make sure that our capital landfill, the renovations are done on those so that we can make sure that's safe and good, and then look at the solar project.
Can we put solar on buildings? Is that possible, or do you already have a contract with electric companies?
No, we have an energy consultant. If that's something the board the committee wants to look at, we can gladly put you guys in touch.
Should we make a vote of that, or do we have to?
Yeah,
Or,
it doesn't hurt to investigate.
I mean, do we have to make a vote, or can we? I don't know, like,
I guess I'm wondering what.
oh,
your
because it
best-
belongs to the town.
It's a town building.
It's a
so-
town building, right, sorry,
So-
never mind. But we pay the bill, right?
What do you,
Do we pay the electric bill?
The town gives us the money in the operating budget to pay the electric bill.
Oh, okay, all right, so it's offset. Well, I mean, it's a good idea for the town.
For the town, yeah, the electric bill's outrageous.
Judging by the conversation tonight, I will bring that up to the board.
Thank you. All right, anything else?
that's it?
All right, dates to remember, January 16th, 2025 is joint meeting at Kingston Town Hall. January 20th, 2025 is the Martin Luther King Day, Junior Day. February 6th, 2025 is another joint meeting, and our next Halifax School Committee meeting is February 10th. And with that, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, roll call, Katie?
Yep.
Lori? Yes. Karen? Jessica?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.